This is Life Rewired, the brain injury podcast for survivors by survivors. And now your host, Rob and Ashley. Hi, I'm Rob, and this is Life Rewired. Today we're talking about something that we haven't talked about before. It's Alzheimer's. And I have someone who has written a book that is amazing for this very topic. I want you to welcome Barb Schaefer to the program today. Hi, Barb.
Good morning.
And a quick note I want to add that I didn't tell you off camera is my mother's name was Barbara. And a lot of people call her Barb. Name. So I feel a connection already.
Yeah.
Okay, Barb, today we want to talk a little bit about your book. But first, I want you to tell us what promoted you to, hey, I want to write a book about this.
Okay. What I want to do then is to just read you a little bit from the introduction.
Yeah.
That explains it. Okay. So I will do that. I'm looking down. As I described in my introduction, the day I returned to Florida, this was after having seen my mother and being told that she was quite sick and she needed some help. She had dementia and had stopped eating, etc. So I went back to Florida to visit her. I live in Wisconsin, so I didn't see her nearly as often, probably as I should have. I walked into the apartment and was taken aback by the woman who was sitting on the sofa. For her entire adult life, my mother had worn her hair in the simplest of straight, unadorned styles. Guess who takes after her? The woman in front of me was decked out in the poofiest bouffant do possible for the thinning locks of an 84-year-old woman. Her care providers, who were extremely pleased at having taken her to the beauty salon in the advance of my visit, immediately asked me how I liked the way Lily looked. In all of those same 84 years, no one had ever called my mother, whose name was Lillian, Lily. The very caring woman who had brought my mother back to life did not have the basic knowledge of what that life had previously been and what Lillian looked like to what she expected to be called. I had a woman sitting in front of me who had dementia, who was being called Lily, and she'd never been called Lily before. So I don't even know if she understood who the woman who cared for her was talking to, because nobody called her Lily. So here she looked different, and she was being called by a different name. And I thought, it would behoove us all to write down a little bit about ourselves, especially people who know they're facing dementia, so that the people who are going to be taking care of us know who we are, have some background information, and also know what we like to do. There were so many things about my mother that these people did not know. Now, I have to tell you, she lived another 2.5 years after this. So had all of that been written down, those would have been a little bit better for her, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I think so, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. I really do. As soon as I saw the book, I was so excited. I said, this can be used in stroke victims, people with brain injuries, dementias, Alzheimer. I mean, all walks of life, because, whether we like it or not, when we look in the mirror, none of us are getting any younger. So it's really great to be prepared for things like that. Things that you never think that you're going to need. One day you might.
Well, I know that your podcast goes out to a lot of people who are facing or have some sort of aphasia.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you that I began writing this book um, almost 20 years ago because my
Wow.
mother hasn't been alive, and I had some problems publishing it, but I've written it, rewritten it. But when I first wrote it, I was at an event. It was a summer retreat. I'm a visual artist, and my husband and I had gone to a program that was run by the University of Minnesota. It was in Cloquet, Minnesota, and it was a plein air painting program.
Mm.
So we were going to paint plein air, which means outside in the fresh air. Um, but also using the same facility was a group that were writing memoirs. So, of course, I talked to the people in both groups. And one of the people writing her memoir was a nurse. And she became quite excited about looking at that time was the draft to the book.
Mm.
And she was going home after this week and going to be helping a woman who had throat cancer. And they were going to be taking out her vocal cords or her speech box. I'm not exactly sure what,
Yeah.
but she was not going to be able to talk
Mm.
after that. And so I gave her that particular draft. I had others. And so the first person who I hope got to use the book and to took advantage of it was not a person facing Alzheimer's or dementia, but a person who was facing aphasia.
Yeah. I love you've done your homework. The more I read, the more impressed I was at all the areas that you thought of that I would have even thought of. I mean, probably you've had to have done interviews. I don't know what you did, but you definitely did the work.
I wrote it. I had my daughter go over it, and we have a good friend who had been at that point. It was about a year ago or 2 years ago, diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Hmm.
And so I gave the book to him and I said, listen, would you help me with this book, editing it? Um, and when he gave it back, I said, well, thank you. You know what? Why don't you just keep this copy? Because I didn't want to pointedly say, you're going to need it. So he kept the
I love it.
copy and hopefully he took advantage of it. So I've had some help and I've written it and rewritten it. I think maybe the one of the good things about us being locked up here at the beginning of COVID was that I went back into it and I added things and rewrote things. And so, yeah, it's been a long,
Did
I've
you
had
find
some hard times.
yourself like maybe out in a restaurant or in line getting a coffee and you going, "Oh, this just popped into my head." Did that ever happen to you?
Not specifically that, but as I say, I'm a visual artist.
Uh-huh.
So I spend most of my life painting. So I do get to think about other things and ideas have come to me. I have to close that off. Now that the book has um, been published, I have to stop thinking about it. Can't get any new ideas. It's done.
And as a
But I
writer,
did. I don't know if you got as far as the ideas for men. Maybe I should
I went
talk
through the whole
about each of the
thing.
chapters, the
Yeah,
title.
let's go through that. But well, first of all, we didn't even tell anybody what the name of the book is. So please
Okay.
tell them the name of the book, and then let's break this down.
Okay. The name of the book is This Is My Name, and I want to write it down before I forget it.
I love that. I love it. So yeah, I've had the privilege of going through all of the chapters. But yeah, let's give a few highlights that would resonate to both men, women, and
Sure.
anything in between.
Okay. So the first chapter is called My Life. And this has been done by other people, and certainly everybody doing their DNA is doing this. But it's a place for people to write down their relatives and the relations, but it also includes a place. There are stories that are in the families that you don't read it in DNA, um,
Mm-hmm.
that are passed down, and so I don't remember exactly what I called it. Um, there's a place for the relatives who are kind of those stories that are hidden that you might want to write down and pass on to your
Yeah.
kids or something, um, about people that might not have turned out as they were supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there's that, and then there's a place to write about your friends and their phone numbers. We send out a holiday card every year, and it's a longer list than there's room for in this book, but that's something that I want my daughter to have,
Mm.
so that if something were to happen to my husband and me, she would know who to contact, that we're
Yeah.
not around anymore.
Right.
So this book is also an inspiration for
Mm-hmm.
ideas like that, and for close friends. Um, if heaven forbids and something, of course, will happen, who should the next generation get in touch with? You would want certainly close friends. So I have a
Yeah.
list that includes telephone numbers and now, of course, emails. That's part of the updating has always been emails and
Right.
Facebook pages, etc. So there's a place for all of that. But that is included in that whole first section. That's This is my life.
I love that. It's just so inclusive that things that you want to think about, and then when a tragedy happens, how often do we really think about everything that
Yeah, you have to be prepared.
when my mother passed away, I mean, it was months, even years later, you would run into somebody who go, "Oh, we forgot to tell so and so that this person passed away." And had it been written down right there in front of us, we'd have known who to contact.
Yeah.
So
So that's chapter
kudos
one.
to you.
Um, Two is keeping me healthy. No, I think this is an old section. I don't remember the title of it, but it starts out, I like to sleep late, or get me up early, and I like my coffee black, or um, with sugar, heaven forbid, or I don't drink coffee. And I'm not looking at the book right now, so I can't go into all of these, but it goes through a
Yeah.
person's early morning regimen. I like to take my showers at night. I like to take them in the morning. So these are the things that a care provider can change.
Yeah.
These are the things that make it comfortable, especially with Alzheimer's. A person doesn't go into the full blown disease immediately.
No.
And, I'm assuming that and at the end of a tragedy, a person might not need this, but there certainly are years before that
Hmm.
happens that these things are important in making
Yeah.
a person more comfortable. I think what inspired me actually is to write the book was that I sleep with two pillows. And if I go to a hotel, I've got to have two pillows. Um, and I think that was in there in the back of my head is somebody needs to know that, you
Yeah.
know, that I sleep with two pillows. So the book takes us through early morning and then into foods. Well, as we get older, foods become a real important part of our lives. And in fact, one of the
Mhm.
last things I did was add a whole page into that section later on in foods.
Yeah.
Then, how do you spend your morning? Do you like to sit and read the newspaper? Do you like to go for a morning walk? What that entails.
Mm.
Um, and of course, as people might close in further into themselves, um, they might not be able to do everything, but at least it's there, and
Yeah.
a care provider could do that for them.
That's
And
exactly
if
what
you
I was
take that,
thinking.
into a person who has had a stroke, who really
Yeah.
does need to have their life continue comfortably um,
Yes.
along the same line.
And they need that routine too.
Yeah,
And, God forbid something happens, it takes the guesswork out of it for the caregiver
yeah.
and the
Because
frustration too. Because I've seen it from, my wife takes care of me and my father-in-law, he had a stroke. So, I mean, it's a lot to take on.
yeah,
So it really takes the guesswork out of it.
um, and it takes a person through their full day. You know what their
Yeah.
activities are. So that's a major part of the book is my life. Beyond the family, it's that. And then I keep checking beauty secrets for women.
Hmm.
You know, a touch of lipstick on people who wear lipstick can make a person's and feel better. You've got to be able to look in that mirror and see yourself looking back.
Yeah.
So um, beauty products are in there. Um, how you like to dress, um,
Hmm.
and then of course men. So that I had to ask my husband all these questions about, you know, what do
We're
men like? Sizes, shoe sizes?
Oh yeah. See, I wouldn't have
Absolutely
even thought of that
essential.
either.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so
So
simple.
you would think so, but
Yeah.
if somebody puts on, I was guardian for a woman once, and the nursing home ordered shoes for her, and they rubbed on her little
Oh.
toe, and they couldn't buy her another pair of shoes, and she really couldn't walk without the shoes, but she couldn't walk with them because they hurt.
Hmm.
And here I was the guardian, and what do you do in a case like that? So actually, I took a mat knife and I cut a hole for her toe so that she could wear the shoe and it wouldn't rub on her toe. I mean, you really have to be creative in life.
Yeah, you do.
So um, then my stuff. What stuff is important?
Hmm.
We have a lot of stuff, but some of it's more important than others.
Yeah.
Um, so what would you want if you were going into a nursing home and your son or daughter had to decide for you because you couldn't tell them? Um, it would be nice for them to know
Yeah.
what paintings, of course, paintings come to my mind, what photographs are important.
Right.
Um, it goes into all that. And then, of course, it starts on medical issues, which now I realize that things change. I mean, I think
Hmm.
everything is settled with my pharmacy, and it's not. Um, and doctors change.
Right.
And it would have been nice if I had been able to. My original idea actually was to have this book in a 3-ring binder so that people could add pages because things change.
Yeah,
Um,
this is
but
true.
it is a place to start, and people can add to it. We do have place for notes in the back for
Yeah, I
things
noticed
to
that,
change.
and that's a good place for them to actually say, "Oh, well, maybe this changed it." And, how inexpensive is whiteout? I think a lot of
Also,
this.
the book is you. You can write on
Yeah,
top of things. It's your book. It doesn't matter. Um,
yeah.
if something changes, you can cross it out and say, "Oh, this changed."
I think it's genius. I mean, you almost, in a way, you are the writer of your own story.
Yeah,
Your book becomes someone else's story.
yeah. And then finally, my demise, but
Yeah,
um, and my husband did a beautiful illustration for that. We were talking about that because we did want to make this book as lighthearted and as appealing as possible. So it's these two people that you kind of follow in the illustrations, and now they're floating on the clouds. And
yeah,
I noticed he kept shoes on them, so I thought that was great.
yeah. This is a project that's going to live on years past you. I hope a lifetime past you, really, because I really think that this is something that anyone would be beneficial from it. You don't have to have any of the issues that we've discussed today.
Yeah.
I think it's something great that everyone should get their hands on.
Yeah, actually, when you said that, it brought something else to my mind, which is when you think back to your great grandparents. You know, what was their life like?
Hmm.
It would be kind of fun for it to be tucked away for a couple of generations.
Yeah,
Um, People learn about life and in our age.
yeah,
I had
because
to add, as time from for 20 years I've been working on this, and there was no such thing as Facebook 20 years ago.
right.
So really, in my final edition, there was a tremendous amount of computer things that had to be put in.
Hmm.
And what I had to take out was specific information, passwords and things that I was putting in. And it occurred to me, no, there's a place for those things to go to an individual, and
Right,
not to be put down in a book because you do not know who's going to read it if you're in a care facility. Um,
right.
so somewhere in the book, I mentioned the fact that you really need to list the person or persons who have certain private information. Certainly,
Hmm.
you don't want to write down your social security number.
Oh, right. As much as you like to think that these places are out for your best interest, there's always going to be that one
You don't
that's
take
going
any
to do that.
chances. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
and
your Medicare number, even. Now that you have to have, they're two
right.
different med numbers.
Yeah, it's so sad that we have to be so protective, but we really do. Well, I love the illustrations. You said your husband did all those,
Yes. Yeah.
and if you've noticed while we've been talking today, I'm going to have the illustrations towards the bottom of the screen so you guys can see those wonderful illustrations. Your husband did a great job.
Yeah. He's illustrated a number of books. He wrote and illustrated a really nice children's book. Um, I don't know. Are we taping now still?
Yeah.
Or,
Hmm.
well, that's all right. I'll put an ad out for it. It's hard to find now. He was out about 20 years ago, but you could find it on Amazon. It's called The Fantastic Journey of Peter Bruegel.
Okay. We'll
And
put a
Peter,
link on there too below, so maybe someone might want to get their hands on a copy of that as well.
okay, yeah,
So to get a copy of your book, we're going to link this in the description for today's program. But also, if you want to, you can visit Inner Peace Press. And um, your book came out a year ago, did you say?
almost a year ago, yeah.
Almost a year ago. So I'm excited that for everyone to get their hands on a copy of this because, like I said, I'm not going to drill this into your guys' head. This is something everyone needs, no matter what your issues you're going through. Even if you're healthy as an ox, get your hands on a copy of this because this is something that is going to be great down the road.
Well, I thank you so much for having me on and talking about it, and
Yeah, my pleasure.
really, the fact that you enjoyed the book so well, enjoyed it. You
Yeah.
know, give it credit. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I started this podcast as a platform for other survivors to have a voice, for them to not feel like they are excluded and lonely in this world. But I also wanted it to be something for caregivers and then anything that's going to promote a better life for anyone else. So I can't think of a better way to have, and this ties into brain injury too, because
Oh
we
yeah,
can all use this.
yeah.
Yeah. So thank you
Well,
so
thank
much for being on today. I'd like to give you a chance before we head out today to give you any of your final thoughts.
my final thoughts. Hmm. I only that I spent 20 years writing and rewriting this. Um, and I think of it more as a journal than as a book. Um, and I just hope that a lot of people take advantage of it just
Yeah.
because I like it so much. I like the idea. I like
Yeah.
having put it together, but not particularly for mercenary reasons. I
Yeah.
just think people might need it.
Yeah. I think you're right. And I applaud you for doing this. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah. We'll see you guys again next week. This is Life Rewired.